Hey guys, welcome to Hope and Healing at Home's Art Therapy Thursday. Hope you are well. Today I thought we would do a tissue paper collage. Two different directions I was thinking about going. One was to work on a bird's nest, and the other idea I had was to just do a relaxing exercise, kind of playing and working on affirmations and things like that. With the tissue paper, relaxing, playing with the tissue paper and techniques with that. There's also potential that I might combine both of them. So I've got some tissue paper, I've got an inspiration image. If you want to have some scissors, maybe any hole punchers, paper punchers. You can do just a regular hole punch. You can do fun stuff like these kind of paper punches as well. If you're going to work with tissue paper, one little trick that I learned a long time ago was you can glue it on with liquid starch. Sometimes it's a little more fun to work with that than regular glue. I ordered some cards made from one of my, like a photo of one of my prints of my paintings. So they sent 2 blank ones, like as protective layers. Anyway, I'm going to make use of those because, you know me, I hate to have things go to waste. So you have, it's nice too because it's a little thicker paper, and it even came up with a spare envelope. So I think I'm going to create on this, and I'm going to use the bird's nest and the idea of affirmations. And I don't know if any of you are familiar with the idea of affirmations, but they're basically little phrases that are full of truth and encouragement for ourselves. You could use verses, you could use words printed from another source, you could type them out on paper, you could write them right in here. They make individual letter stamps, so you could stamp the phrases. So maybe the first step is to grab some paper and write out some affirmations. What do we want to surround ourselves with for the week? Or what's a piece of truth right now that God has been speaking to you? Honestly, one way that I have come up with affirmations for myself is to write all the negative messages that have been popping up in my head, and then I write the counter statement to it. For example, maybe one of the messages is I never ever have enough time. There's just never enough time. And maybe the counter statement to that is I have enough time for what I choose to make time for. Maybe another negative comment that might be flowing through somebody's head would be no one cares, and maybe the counter to that would be God cares for the grass and the sparrows. I'm just going to put for the sparrows, and I matter more. Things like that. Maybe there's some stress at work, or there's a dream that you long to fulfill that you're sort of chasing after and feeling discouraged. And maybe there's a phrase about like, keep looking for opportunities, or God will provide strength, or I have people who care in my life. Maybe you even write an action step for yourself. Make sure you call Betsy for a walk. Because maybe Betsy is somebody who really encourages and breathes a little life into you. Or make yourself a cup of tea. Or I deserve enough sleep for the night. Do some journaling. Think of a few words a few phrases, a few words that you want to make sure to soak yourself in, to wrap yourself up in. And I think that's what we're going to do for our collage today. So there are a few ways you could do this. Obviously, I have some writing on here, and if I use tissue paper or napkins to glue on top of something printed this bold, you're going to be able to see right through it. So perhaps I will take some other images. My sister gave me this postcard for my birthday. I don't know if I want to use it in here, but I was thinking about maybe using parts of the images. I don't think I want to use the whole card for it. kind of intrigued by that airplane, but I think I don't really want to use that right now. But the frog stamp made me smile, or the frog punch made me smile, and I pulled that out, so maybe I find some paper that would look cool as a frog. Or maybe, since we're thinking of nests, maybe I want to pull out a tree punch or a leaf punch. Ooh, I have two of those. I have this foot punch, star punch. I have some previously punched out butterflies. Look at that scrap I just found. So many ideas, guys. So find something that inspires you. I really have been loving polka dots lately, so I think I'm just going to go with that and see what we can make happen. Personally, I just got to try the frog in this to see what... So part of this is just going to be about playing a little bit, so I really am curious as to what this watery print paper will look like on the frog. Sometimes I turn my stamps upside down so I can see what that's going to look like, and I line it up so I like the image that's in the stamp, and then I put it down. Okay, obviously that's not going to cover up that print right there, and maybe I just decide to turn it inside out and cover that up with something later. Or you could use wood washi tape is probably gonna, yeah, you can see the print through that. So maybe not that. You could take a big punch like this circle. They make these really nice little covers, but I don't usually just let the stuff sit in there. But that seems kind of the right size for this, or it's also kind of not quite the right size. You could just cut it out. Yeah, you could do something like that. It's also still not quite the right size. So thinking of taking care of ourselves, relaxing, encouraging ourselves, surrounding ourselves with goodness. I'm just going to show you some little tricks with the tissue paper. I don't necessarily love the colors of my tissue paper, but I'm just going to go with it because it's what I've got. And because I really like this idea of all the little pieces of a nest, which is, you know, how birds make the nest anyway, I'm just going to tear some little strips. Something else you can do with tissue paper is you can scrunch it up into a little ball and then smooth it back out, and it will leave that little bit of a wrinkled texture. And then you also don't worry about like putting it on here because it gets very thin when it's wet. You don't have to worry about it having those wrinkles and be like, oh no, it's not perfectly smooth. Well, that's okay. It's kind of the greatness, kind of part of the charm of tissue paper. I might not finish this all today. We'll just show you some of how you do it, and I'll finish it later and I'll post a picture of it later. Alright, so you can see I just kind of shredded, kind of making a little stockpile for myself of shredded pieces. The whole phrase is good, right? Beauty is in the eye of the beholder. I kind of like the idea of the word beauty from here. And I'm going to tear it so that it's got that little white outline. So if you want the white, you tear the piece you don't want towards you, and it leaves this little white line. I see that. But I like the idea of it all just being these little shredded bits to create this nest, because again, I'm using this image as inspiration. Kind of like their title actually, so I'm going to borrow it, steal it, use it, repurpose it, whatever phrase you like. So these you wouldn't be able to put on with the starch, the liquid starch, but you could glue those on. Keep in mind the affirmations or intentions that you're wanting to display on this card. little background piece of paper to protect my surface from glue and starch. And I think too, I'm going to open the card up fully so that I don't accidentally glue it shut. So with the liquid starch, you can brush it right over the tissue paper. You don't have to put glue down first and then this, and then glue over. And you can see how the folds, this will go right through the folds, and you can create that darker color. Kind of adds a sense of movement to it. And again, I always say there's no right or wrong way to do it. It's just what you want it to look like. Oh, this is really high quality stuff. This is not going to this is more like paper. Let's see if I can sandwich it in here. Make it work. If you get, that's not going to work. That's more like paper, so put it down with regular glue. If you get cheap enough or pigmented enough tissue paper, it will actually bleed. The color will bleed while you're putting this on. And so tissue paper is nice because it's so thin, you can kind of bend it to do your will. And with the starch, your fingers don't have to get all full of glue. It just goes right through. Another fun thing, and I'm not going to keep this on the card, but another fun thing that you can do with tissue paper is, I don't know if any of you remember doing this when you were kids, but you take it around a pencil or something with kind of a flat end, and you scrunch it up right over it. You can twist it a little or just scrunch it, and then you put glue right on the bottom. So with the liquid starch, or with glue if you pour it out in a little dish, you can just dip the end right in there and set it there. You could take a couple colors, layer them, put them over your pencil or pen. You could do it over a paintbrush too, but my paintbrush is really pointy, so it wouldn't work so well. Glue it on. So this is really fun for if you're making trees, because it's very 3D, and then when it dries, you can open them up. So you could even create, oh dude, you could create a little 3D nest if you just wanted to put this on your desk or something, and you could layer the different colors. Then you can take another color tissue paper, and you could either just throw it in there if you want them to be able to be moved, or you could glue them in. So I'm going to use the starch because my glue is just closed right now, and you can put it right in the middle there. Tap it down so it stays put. You could have a little surprise. You could have a little flower or a basket or a nest with different things. You could, if you wanted to make this bigger, each one of those pieces of paper that you kind of scrunch up, ball up into a little ball, could have a message of hope or encouragement for yourself in there. All right, so those were two ideas. I just wanted to show you those. Not going to use them today because I want this card to be flat so that I'm going to send myself the card, write myself a note of encouragement. I'm going to try this again anyway. I know it's kind of papery. I like the color contrast here. It's possible I have really old starch as well that's not working quite as well as I was expecting it to. But anyway, it's a nice little trick I wanted to share with you is you don't always have to use glue. But I am going to pull up the glue because now I have some paper I want to put in there. Maybe I'm changing my mind on the again part. See, we can keep changing our minds, it's all right. Kind of bummed. Let me go find some of that other tissue paper. Nothing here seems to be doing the trick that I wanted it to do. All right, got my stash. It pays at holidays to save people's wrapping paper and tissue paper from their packages, because then you have a huge stash, like these super sparkly ones, really cool pattern ones. Check that out. Isn't that cool? All right, so I'm looking for something with some really good pigment. So you lay it down where you want it. A little liquid starch right over the top. You keep rubbing it, hoping that it'll start bleeding. Because sometimes that really frustrates people when it starts to bleed and you get all these colors everywhere. You're like, I didn't want it to do that. But apparently, people who have given me gifts with tissue paper have gotten some nice quality tissue paper. And it's not bleeding the way I wanted it to for you. Well, something that I know that will bleed, just so we get some color moving around on here. Well, actually, let me try this real quick. Sometimes if you put marker and you get it wet somehow. Yeah, marker will move. If you have some water-soluble marker, that will move a little bit on you. Water-soluble crayons, watercolors. Again, it's just layering some thoughts into this nest. Things that you want to surround yourself with in the coming days. Messages of hope, encouragement. Let little strips of the paper overlap each other. Find some fun patterns. Crinkle it up for some extra texture. Don't be afraid to keep altering it and to keep layering until you like how it looks. A little 3D, three-dimensional will go through the mail just fine. If you had wanted to do a background on here before this, that would be fine as well. You could fill the paper with the front of this card with color, whether it's with painted color or, whoops, I just covered up the message that I wanted to be able to see. And maybe that's okay. Maybe the messages just keep getting woven in to your nest and you don't have to be able to read it all. And remember that the tissue paper, it's very thin, so you'll be able to see colors below it. So if you put it on, I might not be able to see all of the screen because it will become a little transparent. Mush it around, turn it a little bit. Got to fill in the bottom of the nest, huh? So make it a little darker so it looks like it's going deeper. Deeper into the background. Let me know if any of you are doing some art here with me today. The Draw a Bird Nest is actually an art therapy directive that looks at assessing people's attachment and resources. So that's kind of fun. So you could play and just enjoy this process, but also you might be surprised at what gets revealed to yourself. So I will put some questions on here again in the write-up that will help explore that bit. It's getting pretty dark, isn't it, up there? So anytime you're playing with watercolors or a water-soluble marker that you put water on top of and allow it to just kind of bleed and do its own thing, it becomes very, you can't control it, so it allows you to kind of enter into relaxation mode. It can also be incredibly frustrating for some people. And sometimes that's a really, not that I want people to be frustrated, but sometimes getting to that point of working with a material that you don't have so much control over can really allow us to let go and relax and just play a bit. And not, like, I don't know how this is going to actually turn out, but I'll just keep working at it until I like it. And it's okay to have moments where you're like, that is the most ugly thing I've ever seen or made. It's not working how I want it to do, and it's a good thing therapeutically to sort of examine that. And you can do that in your journaling. I think I'm about set with how I want this to be for now. What I want to put in here next are some of those stamped objects. I have some pre-made things that people have given me, like this fun flower, another flower, some fun circles. It's like if I wanted this circle, I could just put it in here. Maybe that's an egg that I would want to have. Do you want a butterfly floating around? I really loved this frog. Maybe, should he be climbing out of the nest? Not sure. He might go on the inside. Or is he hanging out in the nest? So just have fun while you're working on this. Don't take any of the art activities that I put on here too seriously. Part of the great dynamic of using art therapy is letting things develop, letting your subconscious express itself without trying to control it. And that's how you get, when you do the journaling after, or when you process the art that you just made, that's how you get the most benefit out of it. Trying to figure out how to do the eggs. Kind of liking these shiny circles from that paper somebody gave me. Georgia gave me that. She has a fun God's Refrigerator website or Facebook page that's neat. So again, I like to, when I want to see the pattern that I'm punching out, I turn it over so that I can see. Gotta have some sparkly in there, I feel like. Not usually a sparkly person. Like, don't like sparkly outfits and things like that. Or jewelry or nails. Lots of people love that stuff. But for some reason when I'm doing art, every once in a while I'm like, ooh, a little sparkle is nice. The nice thing about working with paper and not gluing it down right away is you can sort of play with it and see what combination you like. So I think I'm going to go with that. And again, since that's paper, I do need to use regular glue. And don't worry, you can, it's okay. Like this starch is still very wet, but I'm just gluing stuff down on it. So that will come out just fine. It'll all dry together. So there are my eggs in the nest. And if I wanted it to be, I feel like I wanted them to be tucked in a little bit more. I just grab another piece of tissue paper and tear it off. Just gonna tuck it in here a little bit more. So I enjoy, I don't know if anybody else enjoys this kind of stuff, but I enjoy being able to work with something I can kind of manipulate with my hands and not always be relying on my paintbrush or my pencil. Sometimes it's nice to get my hands right in there. I'm trying to figure out another color here. Should I do another? I don't want it to get too dark. We'll see what this does. But I want it to feel tucked in and cozy. Or the eggs to feel tucked in and cozy and secure. That's just me. You do not have to be adding this next, you know. Stop when you like how it looks. Don't worry about how anybody else might interpret it or read it. It's your art, it's your expression. In this case, it's your nest. Create the kind of nest that you want. And don't let anybody else tell you what you need to be putting in your nest. You make the nest you want. not everything in life can we do exactly how we want, right? So this is a place where you can relax and enjoy the process and create it. Just only stop when you're ready to stop. And I could just keep going and going, but I am going to make myself stop because I know you guys all have other things to do in your day, and so do I. It's a very busy week over here at my place. Next week, I am going to do an activity based on grief. So looking at emotions, navigating emotions with grief. And I will be talking about that at a grief symposium this Saturday. I will put the link under this video. I will work on this card more and probably add like a background wash with some crayons or some watercolor paints. Probably. I might add a border with some washi tape, which is just pretty tape. And I'll be putting something to cover that print up inside, and then writing myself a message of encouragement. And then I'm going to use this envelope, and I'm actually going to address it to myself once it dries and is all finished, and put a stamp on it, and I'm going to give it to somebody, a friend, a family member, and say, stash this somewhere in your house, and when you find it again, throw it in the mail to me. So maybe in like 3 months, 6 months, a year, who knows when I'll get my card back, but I'll have a fun piece of snail mail written to encourage myself from myself. And that's kind of a fun thing. So if you have something that you're wanting to achieve, write yourself a card, decorate it so it sort of just brings some joy back to yourself. All right, so that's today, and next week I'll be doing that art therapy activity about processing emotions of grief. All right, hope you guys have a good weekend. Thanks for stopping in.